Good evening. I just realized as I was sitting there during the readings that I haven't had this Mass in a while. You've been stuck with Revac for like the last 3 or 4 weeks, I think, haven't you? Oh, okay, well, sorry. Anyway, so Merry Christmas. All right, Christmas is still on till tomorrow. Tomorrow's the baptism of the Lord. Because of our weird Sunday Christmas schedule, it falls on a Monday instead of on a Sunday, and then it's back to ordinary time. But today we celebrate the feast of the Epiphany of the Lord, whereby our Lord manifests himself. He makes himself known to the nations. He makes himself known not just to Israel, but he makes himself known even to the foreigners. And the Magi come and they do him homage and they pay him tribute. They bring him gifts and they allow this light to be revealed to the nations beyond just Israel. Now we look at the three wise men, and they're these strangers from the east, and they come bearing gifts: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And probably a lot of times people think about the gold. You know, there's like the white elephant that you do where it's a $20 limit, right? And so Balthazar and Casper here decided they were going to get frankincense and myrrh. And then Melchior decided he was going to one-up him and he was going to get gold, get the super nice thing. And they're like, whoa, hey, I thought we had a $20 limit. But in reality, the frankincense and the myrrh were worth much more than the gold in those times because they were such pricely things. Pricely, is that a word? No, that's not a word. It's okay? It's not okay. No, it's not okay to use things that aren't words. Costly. It was the frankincense and the myrrh were very costly. Also strange things to give to a child, right? Because here the gold comes, what's the kid going to do with gold? But he's a king, so gold represents that kingship. He's also God, he's the high priest. So incense, right? Frankincense that rises to heaven. And then finally myrrh, which myrrh was like embalming fluid. It's like giving a baby a jar of formaldehyde as a welcome to earth gift. It's strange. Right? And especially for us as modern man, because we don't like to think about death. We've kind of sanitized ourselves completely from death. We don't like to think about the process. We don't like to think about what happens afterwards. Many people have taken to not calling it a funeral, right, but a celebration of life. And it's unfortunate because then we kind of stop focusing on what happens at death. Death is not the end of life. Death is where life changes. Death is where life changes so that we may take on the divinity that Christ desires to share with us, right? He was born into our humanity just for a short little period of time. For 33 years on earth, he shared in our humanity so that he could redeem it, and so that after our time on this earth, we may be united in a death like his, so that we may be united in a resurrection like his, so that we may be able to share in his divinity. Which is insane if you think about it, right? No other religion believes that. No other religion, one believes in the incarnation, right? That God would take on the flesh of his creation. But then more so that God would offer to that creation to share in his own godness. And so here through the Epiphany we see the Magi bringing these gifts to Jesus, foreshadowing him as king, priest, and as the one through whose death we will be united and saved. And so we recognize that the wise men are coming. They're bringing the very best that they have to offer, right? They're coming from their foreign lands, wherever they are, weird Far East places, and they're coming and they're bringing these fine things, right? They're coming to the little baby Jesus who's in the manger, and they're coming and they're giving the best that they possibly can, right? The very best that they possibly can. And for us, I think it's important also that we focus on giving the best that we possibly can, right? When we worship God, when we come to Mass, when we prepare ourselves prayerfully before Mass begins. Notice the rosary hasn't been happening before Mass for the last couple weeks. That's because during that time of Advent, we had the time of preparation, that time of commentary, whereby we were trying to assist y'all to be able to come in and prepare yourself, prepare your heart in a quiet way. And now we're giving you the opportunity for that. I know many people liked the rosary before Mass, but guess what? You can still pray the rosary before Mass, right? It just doesn't have to be led from up here. You can get your rosary and you can pray it. You can even pray it like as a family quietly if you wanted to. So this opportunity to prepare ourselves so that we may give the very best that we can to God in our prayer at Mass, so that we may give the very best that we can to God in our worship of Him, right? That's why in worship we use different things. We use sacred vessels, things that are set apart, right? We have an altar. It's not just a table. You couldn't use this for anything else. If you did, it would be desecrating it, right? Like if you were to take this altar outside and use it as a picnic table, that would be a horrible abuse. This altar has been set aside and consecrated, right, made holy for the purpose of the sacrifice of the Mass being offered atop it. That's it, right? We use the sacred vessels, right, and they're usually gold or silver, right, because we want to give the very best that we can to God. In our prayer as well, our participation in the prayer, we want to give the very best that we can to God. Those Source and Summit missals are great to assist you as you enter into your prayer. They're great to give you some resources, to give you something to pray before Mass, after Mass, to be able to give your very best to God. And then eventually, giving our very best to God, there's a church, right? This isn't a church. If you were here Friday night, there was a dance floor, and there was food, and there was a bar, and there was all sorts of fun. And gosh, I can't wait until that's just the thing that we can do with this room all the time, and we can just leave the tables set up and say, let's have a party. It was great. Thank you to all of you who came out and helped and made that possible. But this space is not consecrated like a church is, right? A church is consecrated and then set aside for that sacred purpose. People have been talking and asking, when's the church going to be built? Where's the church going to be built? You know, and some people are like, it's going to be forever. It's going to take 20 years before we have a permanent church. Others are like, no, maybe we can do it sooner. And I got to thinking, I was like, you know what? If we really gave our best to God, we could probably have a church like within a year, right? If we really thought about it and said, I want a church to be out there, right? You know, give our very best to God. There's the capital in this parish, I think. It exists. People just need to be able to say, yeah, that's a priority, to give the very best to God. And not just any church, but a beautiful church, right? A church that is destined to lead us closer to God. A church that we look at it and we say, there's a God, right? Like when you go to Europe, you see those magnificent cathedrals, right? You go to Italy, go to Milan, you see the Duomo. You look at the Duomo and you're like, whoa! Like, there's got to be a God. If that's not pointing to God, I don't know what it's doing. But to be able to give our very best to God so that we may worship Him. A lot of times I think, gosh, I talk about money and I don't like doing that, but I have to do it sometimes. And I was just reflecting, if we were really to give our very best to God, we would probably have a church now. If everybody in this parish gave their very best that they had to God, we would have a church. But what do? Instead, we give our very best to renovating things, very best to having a nice bathroom with granite countertops in the bathroom, or renovating the kitchen that was just renovated. And I know I renovated my kitchen a couple years ago, and it was expensive. I didn't renovate the pink bathroom, though, right? And every time people come into the rectory and they see the pink bathroom, they say, why didn't you renovate this? I said, because it's a bathroom, right? It doesn't matter. It's just a bathroom. Give our best to God, right? Not give our best to the place where we do our business. So I'm just thinking out loud, if we were all to give our best to God, we'd have a church in no time. So there you go. But we don't. So we're here right now, we're at Mass, and we're giving our very best to God in the best way that we can, right? We prepare our hearts for prayer. We enter into the prayer of the Mass, and we look, and like the Magi, we come to adore this mysterious King, right? God is a mysterious King. We don't know everything there is to know about Him. We know some stuff, the stuff that He's chosen to reveal to us, but there's so much more that we don't know, that we don't understand, and so what do? We just simply come in awe, right? We're in awe at His presence. We look to Him, and we trust Him, and we worship Him, and we ask Him for things, and we do Him homage. All of these things that show our respect, show our love for God. And so the wise men are such a great example to us of coming without even really having full knowledge, right? Like they came and they're like, okay, there's this newborn king. Where are we supposed to find him? Herod didn't know, of course, because he didn't know anything about Judaism. He was really just in politics. They got to find out, where's the king? We got to find him. And the star leads them to him, right? I think for all of us, we can ask ourselves the same question in our lives. Where's the king? And is the star going to lead me to it, right? For a lot of us, the king is whatever is the popular thing going on right now. For us, the king is to do with politics, or the king is to do with money, or the king is to do with whatever activity it is that we like. The king is to do with our hobby. But if we follow that light, if we trust that light, if we look and we say, I'm going to see where it shines, we're going to recognize that the light is shining from that star brightly onto Christ, and then it's radiating back to the nations. And that we're called to be bearers of that light. We're called to bear the light of Christ to the nations so that others may see his glory, so that others may recognize him. That's, again, part of the reason why churches are supposed to be beautiful. That's why the things that we use for Mass are supposed to be beautiful and otherworldly, right? It's supposed to be something that transports us, that carries us away, that makes us say, gosh, this is not something I could fathom here and now in this place on earth, but rather it's something that must transcend time. It must transcend whatever else is going on around us. And so to be able to give our very best to God, right? We do so in our prayer, we do so in our worship, we do so in our music, we do so in the way that we present ourselves, right? In the way that we live our lives. Not just here, not just when we're at Mass, but each and every day, right? I have told you before, I don't always present my very best to God when I'm sitting behind the steering wheel of my car, because the things that leave my mouth are probably not things that should be said by anyone, let alone a priest. Right? You know what I'm talking about, right? You guys have been there before. Anyway, I'm getting extremely distracted because my niece is in the front row and I'm trying not to look at her. So I'm like looking over her head. Now I've embarrassed her, I bet, but I'm still not going to look at her. Where was I? Oh, there you are. Now I looked at you. Yeah, road rage, right? Or whatever it is in your life that is preventing you from glorifying God or from leading other people closer to God, right? Or just distracting you from God, right? Distracting you from seeing the King, from worshiping him, from being able to give him your very best. Whatever that thing is in your life, we have to ask ourselves, Lord, how can I do better, right? How can I give you that which is best? How can I give you that which you deserve? How can I give you the very best that I have to offer? How can I give you the best completely of my heart, of my soul, of my mind, of my body, of my strength, of my will? How can I give myself to you completely, fully, that I may trust you, and that I may allow the light that radiates forth from you to shine so bright in me that others can't help but see it, right? That others can't help but notice, that others can't help but say, I want to know about that light too. That's what the Epiphany is about. It's about that light being revealed to the nations so that all of us may come to God and recognizing that he has given us the very best thing he can give us. He's given us life. And then beyond life, he's given us eternal life. And so how can we present to him our very best? As we continue with this Mass on the Feast of the Epiphany of the Lord, let us continue to ask God that he would give us that grace to be able to allow his light to shine forth so that all the nations may see him.